Okay, let's cover now to convert the first animation. And let's start easy with the idle animation, which is usually the first animation you work on when working with a character for the first time. So this is where we were before with Blender. Um, there's the character in the T-pose. Looks good, but we don't need it anymore. So we're gonna click on here on the armature, and we're gonna click X and remove everything, even the mesh. So basically brand new. And we're gonna click on Lumbermixalot. We're gonna click on Import FBX, and now we're gonna go to the Motions folder, and we're gonna pick the idle FBX. And there it is, and you can actually click play, and we can see there is some movement in there, some very tiny, but we know it's the actor animation. Perfect. The key feature of Lumbermixalot, besides fixing the character, removing and use vertex streams, which is very important, is that when working with motions, what we're gonna do is called root motion extraction. This is what the plugin does for you automatically. So when you look at the Blender data, in particular on the armature, you're gonna see that the first bone is the hips bone. And that hip bone, when we look on, let's say, edit mode, is right here. That's the hip bone. But we want all of the motion data to be here at the feet. And basically, the magic of Lumbermixalot is that it takes the motion data that is embedded into the hip bone and transform that data and brings it into the feet of the character, and this is called usually the root motion node and root motion bone. In this case, this node is in Blender is equivalent to the armature node that is here, and it is precisely in this node where we're gonna add all of the new animation data. We're gonna get animation data embedded into the hips bone, and we're gonna do some processing, and we're gonna move that data to the armature bone, and that's what is gonna make everything looks correct in O3DE. By default, when we're gonna do root motion extraction, we have the option to extract movement around the x-axis, around the y-axis, and around the z-axis, like z-up. Movement on the z-axis means, for example, if your animation jumps, all of that jumping data moves from the hip into the feet of the character. Optionally, we can extract rotations around z-axis. This is very important for when you want to capture in your game. You want your root motion to rotate. And we'll cover details about that later with other animations. So usually by default, this is all you need to do. The default settings are usually correct. So all we're gonna do is click on extract root motion, and what is going to happen is you will see when you click now on the armature, you're going to see that the armature has now animation data into it. After we move the data, we can now play again, and we can see that the character looks basically the same. The only difference is that now we have root motion data in the armature node. Nothing much to appreciate here. because it's an idle animation that doesn't move around. So it's hard to appreciate root motion on an idle animation. Nonetheless, this is all ready. So we're gonna click, we're gonna select, I like to work on a motions folder, and we're gonna export there the idle animation on the game project. And there is a success. The FBX was exported. Now let's see how this looks like. Now we're back at the O3D editor. And remember, the first thing we always want to do is that we're going to pick the idle animation. And in the motions tab, the only thing we must do is click on armature as the root bone. This is something that we always have to do from now on. Pick the armature, update. Success. Now this idle motion is ready. So to show it in action, all we need to do is we're going to add a motion component, the simple motion component. Okay, so now we have the idle animation applied on the character, previewed on the editor itself. And that's it. Now let's go and work on the walking animation.